Hey folks, welcome back. Today I'm looking at the DrinkMate Beverage Carbonator, which is a fairly standard canister-based carbonator. However, unlike most other carbonators, the DrinkMate claims that you can carbonate anything, not just boring old water. Now, this is a bit of a long-term review. I've had the DrinkMate for about 10 months or so, and I've put through about 300 bottles. Similarly, I've owned the Sparkel canister-less beverage carbonator for about 10 months before that, and I also ran about 300 or so bottles through that. Now, I previously published a full review of the Sparkel, so if you're primarily interested in this neat canister-less carbonator, then check out that video up here-ish. On the other hand, if you want my take on the DrinkMate and maybe a little bit of a compare and contrast with the Sparkel, stay right here. So the DrinkMate is a traditional beverage carbonator in that it uses small tanks of pre-compressed CO2 gas. The canister is installed through the back of the DrinkMate, the CO2 is fed up through a valve and then into a bottle where the pressure will build. It'll agitate the water and the ice and whatever's in the bottle, which will force carbon dioxide gas into your beverage. And almost all beverage carbonators on the market work this way, including the industry standard SodaStream. So why buy a DrinkMate when you can get the much more popular SodaStream devices for around the same price? Well, almost all beverage carbonators, including the SodaStream, only carbonate water, where the DrinkMate, as well as the Sparkel, claim that they can carbonate any liquid. So bring your juices, your old flat soda, alcohol, milk, I suppose, and run it through the DrinkMate, but keep all of that stuff away from most other carbonators. The reason the DrinkMate can carbonate more than water is because of this infusion cap that clamps onto the top of the bottle. This cap is the one-way valve that keeps the bottle contents pressurized, as well as the released valve that bleeds off the pressure when the carbonation is complete. The carbonation process is a bit messy and violent. The compressed CO2 gas blasts into the bottle and blows the liquid and ice all around quite a bit. Liquid can get up into the seals and rings and valves and whatnot in the infusion cap, but then you can just detach the cap, wash it under some water, or even, soak it in vinegar if things get really out of hand, and you're good to go. Worst case, you can buy a new infusion cap separately. So most other carbonators will ensconce all of this valving and the injection stem and the rings and all that into the body of the carbonator, and while water will just dry out over time, those other liquids will stay in there and get nasty with no great way to clean them out. Now, the Sparkel takes a similar approach. The main pressure injection valve is part of the bottom cap of the bottle, with the pressure release valve being on the top cap. During carbonation, positive pressure will push gas up through the bottom valve, and then as pressure builds in the bottle, it'll bleed out of the top, and in theory, no liquid leaves the bottle. In practice, though, the process is not 100% foolproof, and gravity finds a way around the bottom valve. In my review video, you can see quite a bit of gunk accumulating in the bottom of the main Sparkel body, and particularly on the little pin that engages the pressure valve. It's generally just a drip here or there, but due to the design of the Sparkel, it's hard to get it completely clean. So I'm pretty comfortable carbonating just about anything in the DrinkMate, as long as you remember to clean the infusion cap afterwards. However, I'm a bit wary about carbonating anything but water in the Sparkel, unless you're willing to disassemble the device and clean it out once in a while. Now, all that said, 90% of the time I'm carbonating water and adding in flavoring afterwards, so being able to carbonate things other than water is kind of just icing on the cake. Now, setting up the DrinkMate is super simple. You just have to remove the back plate, insert the CO2 canister, and screw it into the top threads in the carbonator itself, and then put the back plate back on, and now you are ready to carbonate beverages. Fill the bottle up to the fill line with liquid and ice and attach the infuser cap. Here it's a good idea to give it a good shake, as cold liquid will take carbon gas better than warm liquid. Now you slide the bottle onto the carbonator base at an angle. You tilt it down to lock it in, and that also lowers a little injection, a gas injection pin into the bottle. You push the top button a few times until you hear that hiss. That's the overpressurization valve triggering, and once you've gotten to this point, you're at max pressure. There's no need to push the button any longer. You tilt the bottle back up, you can slide it back out, and now this bottle is still compressed. It's still got, gas pressure inside of it. So if you want like that ultra extra super carbonation, you can give it a shake here, which should force even more CO2 gas into the beverage. But once you think you're at the right spot, you flip up the infuser cap, you push down the blue release valve, and now you can take off the cap with no risk of blowing anything in your face. Now, if you infuse something other than water, you're ready to go. If you just infused plain water like I did, now is the time to add your flavorings. So this whole process takes less than a minute, and the carbonation itself is only a few seconds, and that's a big contrast with the Sparkel. In the Sparkel, instead of piping compressed CO2 from a canister, the Sparkel creates CO2 gas via a chemical process. You add some water to the rear holding tank, dump a sachet of baking soda and citric acid into the top of the carbonator, and it will mechanically mix those ingredients in an internal mixing tank. The chemical reaction produces CO2 gas, which is bled off and injected through the bottom of the Sparkel bottle. Now, this is a far slower and more controllable process, and the Sparkel gives you 5 carbonation settings that are pretty consistent. You can crudely adjust carbonation levels in the DrinkMate by controlling the duration of presses or shaking or not shaking the bottle, but it's pretty rudimentary compared to Sparkel's automated system. But since the Sparkel is relying on a chemical reaction to produce CO2, it's a relatively slow process. The carbonation process that took seconds on the DrinkMate takes about 3 minutes on the Sparkel, and that's 3 minutes of waiting for every single bottle, or about 15 hours over the course of the 300 bottles that I've run through the Sparkel. Now, as for running cost, DrinkMate runs their own canister recycling program. You get a discount for recycling more canisters at a time, but then you have higher initial costs as you have to buy the canisters in the first place. And then you have to store and manage all those canisters as well. Now, I utilize the 2 at a time exchange program, which gives me $22 back on the cost of new canisters when I return 2 of the empty ones. 2 new canisters is about $60 currently. You subtract the $22 and you're at $38 for 2 bottles, or $19 per canister. I get about 55 bottles per canister, which brings me to about 35 cents per carbonated bottle, not including the flavorings and whatnot. Now, the recycling program is easy. They send the canisters in this reusable box with a prepaid shipping label. All you got to do is put the label on the box, drop it off at the nearest UPS, and you'll get a credit on your DrinkMate account. So assuming your DrinkMate comes with 1 canister, and they do sell combo packs with more canisters, you're paying an additional $60 up front for the 2 additional canisters. Now, the Sparkel, on the other hand, uses these small sachets of baking soda and citric acid that you dump into the top of the machine. There is no quantity variation based on carbonation level. You use 1 sachet whether you're at carbonation level 1 or carbonation level 5, and you get 90 sachets for about $40, which brings the cost per bottle, again, just of the carbonation, to 44 cents, which is a little bit more than the bottle rate of the DrinkMate. Now, that cost has to be weighed against the upfront canister costs on the DrinkMate, as well as the inconvenience of storing, managing, and returning the canisters. There are also some folks that are straight up paranoid about a tank of compressed gas just sitting on their kitchen countertop. Now, while the DrinkMate does a pretty good job of preventing you from doing something stupid and injuring yourself with compressed CO2, having these canisters just lying around seems more dangerous than food-safe baking soda and citric acid, especially if you have rambunctious children or a mischievous cat. And of course, there are cheaper DIY aftermarket solutions for both the DrinkMate and the Sparkel. And full disclaimer here, neither company supports using anything besides OEM canisters and chemicals. If you mess up the CO2 tubing or the chemical mixtures, you could damage the device or even cause bodily harm. And I'm not going to dive into a lot of detail on these aftermarket solutions, but suffice to say that it's super simple to get your hands on powdered baking soda and citric acid and measure how much is in these little sachets. Things are quite a bit more complex for the canister-based devices, but there are two common options. One, you can buy a larger CO2 canister used for something like paintball and adapt it to the Carbonator's tank fitting, which means a big old tank sitting somewhere in your kitchen, but bulk refills are dirt cheap. Or the second option is to buy a huge CO2 tank that you can keep in your garage or your basement or whatnot, and a refill apparatus to perform your own refills of these 60-liter canisters at home. Both options require you to purchase a new larger tank to deal with compressed gas fittings and valves and to figure out how to get that larger tank filled. And not everyone will be comfortable with using CO2 from Bob's paintball supply in their drinks. Now, outside of the carbonation process, the DrinkMate and Sparkel bottles are also very different. The DrinkMate bottle is a pretty normal bottle, although a bit thicker than your average water bottle. I often use it for non-carbonated drinks like Gatorade, tea, or just plain old water. It has a cap that seals tightly and this detachable base that keeps the bottle standing upright, and also seems to function as a condensation drip catcher, as I rarely get any condensation dripping off the bottle in spite of it being just a regular single-walled bottle. And really the only thing that differentiates the DrinkMate bottle from a standard bottle are these kind of big nubs near the top of the bottle that are used to secure the infuser to the bottle during the carbonation process. You don't really notice them unless you're looking for them though. The Sparkel bottle, on the other hand, is definitely not a standard water bottle. The bottom cap has a big old valve in it for CO2 infusion, and the top cap has a little tiny valve for bleeding off excess gas. And while I don't think I've ever had an issue with the valves leaking on the Sparkel bottle, the bottle does not handle condensation well. I believe water is kind of resting in this crease where the bottom cap screws onto the bottle, and then when you raise up the bottle, it all drips down your arm and your chest and whatnot. I would also be wary about taking the Sparkel bottle out and about since the valves are a bit exposed. You wouldn't want to get dirt and gunk up in this unprotected valve. One area where the Sparkel bottle really excels though is with the size of the bottle's mouth. The Sparkel bottle can take full-sized ice cubes as well as multiple of those moon-shaped ice maker cubes at a time. With the smaller mouth on the DrinkMate, you have to feed the cubes in individually, and it's also easier to clean the Sparkel bottle since once you remove the caps, it's just really a big plastic tube. Now, speaking of which, both bottles claim to be hand wash only, and I can vouch for that statement, at least for the DrinkMate. Luckily, replacing the DrinkMate bottles is pretty cheap. I got 2 large bottles for $20, whereas a pair of Sparkel bottles will run you about $35. However, the Sparkel bottles come with the infusion valves, whereas a new DrinkMate infuser will cost you $25 to $30. In short, I wouldn't consider the Sparkel bottle like an activity bottle, and if you'd like to bring a drink hiking or to the sports ball game, maybe transfer your carbonated beverage to a different bottle, where the DrinkMate can be used without reservation just like a regular old water bottle. It's also worth mentioning that the DrinkMate is electricity free. The valve that bleeds and injects CO2 is mechanical and operates solely on human power. The Sparkel requires wall power to measure, adjust, and mix the chemical solution. It's also a fairly loud process, so get ready to pause that TV show for about 3 minutes. The DrinkMate certainly makes some noise when injecting CO2, but it only lasts a few seconds, so it's not quite as disruptive. The Sparkel also has a mixing water tank and a wastewater tank. If the mixing water tank runs dry, then you get no carbonation, and if the wastewater tank overflows, you get a mess on your counter. So it's just generally more maintenance with the Sparkel, even considering the tank exchange nonsense of normal carbonators. So where does that leave us? Well, I love the ease of use of the DrinkMate. The infusion cap works well. It's reasonably cleanable, although I would love it if the infusion cap could be disassembled a little bit for some deeper scrubbing. Drink infusion only takes a few seconds, and I'm comfortable taking this bottle just about anywhere. They made the CO2 exchange process pretty simple with free shipping boxes and prepaid labels, and since it uses standard 60-liter tanks, if you prefer a different process or already have the tanks, you can use whoever you like the most. I will note that my first infusion cap ended up breaking 8 months or so after I bought the DrinkMate. However, since it was under warranty, DrinkMate sent me a replacement for free, so A+ for customer service, but that does raise some questions on the durability of the Infusion cap. Now, on the Sparkel side, I love not having to deal with CO2 tanks at all, and it's a lot easier to keep a couple of bags of chemicals in the house than multiple tanks of compressed gas. There is no exchange process, which is great. Just order more chemicals when you start to get low. Being able to dial in your carbonation level is cool, although I landed on my favorite setting, and that's pretty much all I ever used. Since the valves are part of the bottle, I wouldn't want to get this bottle dirty or damaged, and it's bad at dripping condensation on me when I drink from it. But the real deciding factor between the two for me is the carbonation time. After spending the better part of a year listening to this sparkle whir and buzz for 3 minutes per bottle while my wife is waiting to start dinner or watch TV, moving to the DrinkMate, where the same process takes only seconds, was a game changer. It's great that Sparkel offers a viable, convenient option for people that don't want to keep compressed gas lying around their kitchen, but it's just too slow and too loud for me. Of course, your preferences and your usage may vary, and I'd love to hear which style of device you use and why in the comments below. So that's it for my DrinkMate review in comparison with the Sparkel. If you liked this video, please hit that like button, and if you liked my other videos, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.